While I was sorting through my husband's belongings, I came across something I never expected. Tucked between old papers was a bank transfer record and a photograph. That was the moment everything changed. The man I had lived with for most of my life, a quiet man, not one for sweet words, had only ever truly loved one woman, his first love, Maria Lynn. For years, he had been secretly sending her half of his monthly salary to help raise her son. And before he passed, he even left a will behind. In it, he wrote that half of all his assets should be given, without question, to Maria and her child. I had no time to process the betrayal, no time to grieve or even be angry. Before long, Maria showed up at my doorstep with her son. She walked into my home without hesitation, her voice loud and sharp, demanding that I share the house with them. Her son stood beside her, cold and proud, like he had every right to be there. The anger rose so quickly inside me that I could hardly breathe. My chest ached, my hands trembled, and before I could say a word, my vision went black. I collapsed and died right there in my own living room. But when I opened my eyes again, I was no longer lying on the floor. I was back in the past, standing in my old classroom on the very day I received my college acceptance letter. Olivia Chen, congratulations on being accepted to Capital Medical University, my teacher said with a proud smile. You are the first female student from our night school to be accepted into a university. We are all very proud of you. He gently patted my shoulder. Study hard, Olivia. Someday you will use your knowledge to help others. I will, sir, I replied, my voice steady even as my chest swelled with emotion. I will not let you down. I will not let this country that raised me down either. Then, after a short pause, I looked at him and asked quietly, could I ask you not to tell anyone about this just yet? He looked surprised. Why not? I hesitated, then said, I am just afraid someone might try to take this chance away from me. He nodded with understanding and promised to keep it a secret. I held the acceptance letter tightly to my chest like it was a fragile piece of hope. As I stepped out of the school building, the cool autumn breeze touched my face, but it could not calm the storm in my heart. Had I truly come back to life? Memories from my past life came rushing back. I had given up everything, my education, my dreams, even my sense of self, for a man named Daniel Gu. I believed that if I made enough sacrifices, he would appreciate me. That even if we did not have a fiery romance, we would at least have a bond built on trust and respect. But in the end, I was just a fool. I remembered clearly the day I found that transfer record and the photo. Every month, without fail, the same amount had been sent to Maria Lynn. In the picture, Daniel stood beside her, holding a little boy. They were all smiling like a happy little family. At that moment, everything I believed in shattered. He had always loved only her. He used our shared income to support another woman's child while telling me to be frugal, to stop wasting money. He even left a will giving half of his property to them. And to me, the wife who stood by him for 50 years, he left one line: do not make things hard for Maria and her son. Before I had even recovered from the heartbreak, Maria brought her son and daughter-in-law into my house. She shouted at me with that same sharp voice, Olivia, you better pack up and leave. This house belongs to us now. Her son and daughter-in-law stood behind her, full of disdain. I still remember the smug look in their eyes. Mom, why waste time talking? Just throw her things out, the daughter-in-law sneered. I was so furious I could not stop trembling. The pain in my chest returned stronger than ever. My vision went dark again and I fell. That was how I died. And now, by some miracle, I had returned to that moment in time when I still had a future ahead of me. This time, I would not waste my life on Daniel Gu. This time, I would live for myself. When I got home, the first thing I did was tuck away my acceptance letter in a safe place. I remembered how in my past life, I had run to Daniel with that letter in my hands, eager to share the good news. But he had not been happy for me. His face looked troubled. Olivia, don't go to Capital, he said. Your family needs you. I need you. Back then, I thought he just didn't want to be apart from me. I was touched and decided to stay. I gave up my dream of college to be with him, but now I knew the truth. He never needed me as a partner. He only wanted someone to cook, clean, and take care of his parents. I had never been his choice. I had been his convenience. I looked at the calendar on the desk. Just one more month. In one more month, I would leave this place and start a new life. As I lifted the calendar, a folded piece of paper fell out. I picked it up and slowly unfolded it. My heart sank. It was the marriage report Daniel Gu was supposed to have submitted to the army. He had told me it had been handed in 6 months ago, but here it was, still untouched. Then it dawned on me. 6 months ago was the exact time Maria had arrived with her son. That was the day he ran off to meet them at the station. All the pieces fit together now. Everything that had happened, every lie he told, every choice he made, it was all because of her. But this time, I would not let my life be shaped by betrayal. I had been given another chance, and I would not waste it. How could he have possibly been in the mood to submit our marriage report to his unit or even care about me at all? That night, I stayed home like a fool, happily preparing a full table of dishes to celebrate what I thought would be a special moment for us. I waited from morning until nightfall, only to hear him casually say he had to work the night shift. Now that I have lived through it all again, the truth is painfully clear. He didn't go to work that night. He was settling Maria and her son into their new life. While I had waited with hope, he was elsewhere, building a home with someone else. As I stared down at the untouched marriage report, I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. That piece of paper had no meaning anymore. It was a joke, a mockery of my trust. I struck a match and set it on fire. The flames flared up, red and fierce, flickering as if they were laughing at the foolishness of my past. Just then, the door creaked open. "Olivia, did you make the chive and pork dumplings I asked for?" "Leo is hungry," came Daniel's voice as he walked in with Maria and her son trailing right behind him. He sniffed the air and frowned. "Olivia, what are you burning? Aren't you worried the smoke will bother Leo?" I looked up coldly at the three of them standing close together, like a picture-perfect little family. My voice was flat and chilly. "Nothing important, just something that no longer matters." Daniel paused for a moment, clearly surprised by my tone. But he quickly gathered himself and continued, sounding a bit rushed. "Are the dumplings ready yet? Leo had a very active day at preschool. He needs to eat." He walked to the kitchen, lifted the pot lid, and found it empty. His expression hardened. "Olivia, why didn't you make the dumplings? Don't you know how hungry Leo is?" Right on cue, Leo began to cry. "I'm hungry. I want dumplings, Daddy. I want dumplings." I let out a low scoff, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "He called you Daddy." Daniel and Maria both froze, their faces turned pale, and I could see panic flash in their eyes. Maria quickly put on a pitiful expression, her voice soft and apologetic. "Olivia, please don't misunderstand. He's just a child. He says things without thinking. I have corrected him so many times, but Daniel said it was not necessary. He said Leo is already like a son to him." Daniel, clearly afraid I would blame Maria, quickly stepped in. "Olivia, don't make a fuss, it's just a word. I already decided to take Leo in as my godson, so what if he calls me Dad?" I looked at him without emotion, my voice calm but distant. "He can call you whatever he wants. It has nothing to do with me." Daniel's face darkened with embarrassment. He tried to change the subject. "Olivia, why didn't you cook after work? I told you last night." Back when I loved him, I would have done anything he asked. I would cook, clean, and quietly bear every grievance. But not anymore. That love was long gone. My heart had turned cold. "I was tired today," I said quietly. "I didn't feel like cooking. If you want to eat, you can make it yourself. Or do you plan to starve just because I didn't?" They all stared at me, stunned, as if they couldn't believe I was the one saying these words. The old me would have smiled through the pain, swallowed the tears, and carried on without complaint. But not anymore. I would never let myself be treated unfairly again. I turned and walked toward my room. "Olivia?" Daniel called after me. Then came Maria's gentle voice, sweet as syrup and just as suffocating. "Olivia, I know you don't like me. It's all right. I won't come around anymore." Her eyes glistened with tears. She clutched Leo close, a picture of tender sadness, and slowly walked out. Even her light steps seemed deliberately weak and frail, as if hoping to gain sympathy with every movement. I watched her figure disappear and let out a cold laugh. In my past life, I had been completely fooled by that act of hers. I had believed it all, and after Daniel saw them out, he returned with a face full of frustration. Olivia, what is going on with you today? How could you treat our guest like that? I lay on the bed without moving, not even lifting an eyelid. He sighed and walked over to the bed, his voice softened. Olivia, there is nothing improper between me and Maria. Can you stop letting your thoughts wander into dark places? When I didn't respond, he grew more anxious. I'll admit it, he said. I used to have feelings for Maria, but once she married James, she was like a sister-in-law to me. Now what we have is just a friendship based on shared history. I have told you many times, if James had not sacrificed himself to save me, Mariah would still have her husband, and Leo would still have his father. I owe them. They are just a poor mother and child. I have a duty to look after them. As a military wife, you should understand and support that. Maria's husband, James Gang, and Daniel had joined the army together as sworn brothers. Both had fallen for Maria, a graceful dancer from the cultural troupe. In the end, Maria chose James, who held a higher rank. On the day of their wedding, Daniel finally introduced me, his fiancée from the countryside chosen by our families long ago, to his fellow soldiers. No one could have imagined that James would later die on the battlefield, protecting Daniel's life. Daniel had been weighed down by guilt ever since. But what did that have to do with me? If he owed someone something, then he should be the one to repay it. Why did I have to be dragged into it? In my past life, he gave Maria things that belonged to me. My food ration coupons, the new comforter I had just sewn, and even the fabric I had not yet cut. He did it all without asking. When I cried and told him those things were mine and that I needed them too, he told me I should be more generous and kind-hearted. He said I was not worthy of being a military wife if I couldn't be selfless. And now he dared to call me petty and mean-spirited. How ridiculous. Everyone in the neighborhood could see how close Daniel and Maria were. Too close. After work, he never came to pick up his own fiancée. Instead, he would head straight to Maria's workplace and walk her and her son home, chatting and laughing the whole way. To anyone watching, they looked like a happy little family of three. Daniel often brought them over for dinner. I was the one who cooked. I was the one who cleaned. As soon as they arrived, they sat down and ate like it was their own home. I was nothing more than a free maid. Some of our neighbors warned me privately. They told me to be careful, that Maria Lynn was a threat, and I might lose my marriage if I wasn't careful, but at that point, it didn't matter anymore. I no longer felt the need to explain anything to Daniel. I no longer wanted this man. He was not worth my time or energy. I looked at him and said calmly, I am not angry and I did not misunderstand anything. I am just tired. I don't feel like moving. Daniel let out a deep breath. A wave of relief passed over his face, like someone who had narrowly escaped a terrible storm. Olivia, I'm glad you're not upset, he said, sounding cheerful. If you are tired, then rest. I will take care of dinner tonight. He turned and went into the kitchen. I lay on the bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, my mind already drifting toward my plans for Beijing. The smell of food slowly reached the room, pulling me back to the present. Olivia, dinner is ready, Daniel called gently from outside the door. I got up and walked to the table. There were 2 plain dishes and a bowl of soup. It was nothing fancy, but something about them felt unfamiliar. We had sat at this same table before, just like this. But back then, I looked at him with affection. Now, there was nothing left but indifference. Olivia, Daniel said cautiously, I was thinking, maybe we could give the television to Leo. It might help keep him entertained. You and I don't really watch it much anyway. I almost laughed. In my past life, he didn't even bother to ask me. He just picked up the television and took it straight to Maria's place. I had spent a long time saving up for that TV, and just like that, it was gone. We had a terrible argument about it. Maria Lynn later pretended to return it, acting polite, but Daniel felt embarrassed. Using a scheduled deployment as an excuse, he walked out and didn't come home for a month. When I went to find him, he told me he was too busy and had no time for me. But I saw with my own eyes how he had time to walk through town with Maria and her son, shopping for groceries and other things. Because I still cared about him then, I swallowed my pride. I personally delivered the TV to Maria's house. Only after that did Daniel come home. He praised me, calling me a good military wife, generous and thoughtful. Now, thinking about all of it, I gave myself a bitter smile. If I could go back, I would have slapped some sense into my past self. "What are you smiling about, Olivia?" Daniel asked, confused. "Nothing," I replied, forcing the smile to fade. "You want to give the television away?" I looked him in the eye. "Fine, but Maria needs to pay me $100. His face changed immediately. I knew what he was thinking. He was about to accuse me of being petty again, of lacking kindness. I cut him off. "When we bought the TV, it cost $400. You paid $30. I paid $100. I had to borrow that 100 from my coworkers, little by little. I still haven't finished paying them back." I paused, then added, "I was going to use my food ration coupons as collateral, but you already gave those to Maria. Now I have no money and no coupons. Your salary is almost gone too. What am I supposed to eat or drink until the next payday?" Daniel stood in silence. It took him a while before he finally said, "I will get you the $100 as soon as I can." I knew very well he would never ask Maria for the money. He would pay it himself. But it didn't matter to me how he got it. I just needed that money in my hand. The train fare to Beijing, the enrollment fees, daily living expenses. $100 was not nearly enough. I had to find a way to earn more, and quickly. The month would pass faster than I could imagine. The next morning, Daniel hummed a cheerful tune as he carried the television out of the house. The moment he was gone, I began packing. I gathered up old books, used test papers, a half-finished shoe sole I had been stitching, and the scarf and hat I had just finished knitting for him. I sold everything to the junk dealer. It only brought in $20, but that small amount was the seed for my new beginning. That evening, Daniel handed me $100. I took the money, counted it twice carefully, then slipped it into my pocket with a quiet sense of satisfaction. "Olivia, does it feel like something's missing in the house?" he asked, glancing around the room. "Not really," I answered calmly, as if nothing had changed. "Our photo," he said, pointing to the empty spot on the wall. "Oh, I accidentally broke the frame," I replied casually. "The photo got dirty too. I'll get it reframed some other time." That was a lie. In truth, I had cut myself out of the picture. We were never truly a couple. That photo only made me feel sick. We were halfway through dinner when Maria burst into the house in a panic. "Daniel, there's a rat in my place. I'm so scared, and Leo is crying too. Please, come help." She clung tightly to Daniel's arm. He looked at me, unsure what to do. I smiled and said, "Go ahead, they're just a mother and child. Of course, they need your help." He stood up right away and left with her. As I watched them walk away, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. In fact, I found it all strangely amusing. It's amazing how light your heart becomes once you stop caring. In the days that followed, Daniel started giving Maria his military rations and benefits. I said nothing. He bought her a new dress. I was not angry. He defended her when someone bullied her and told everyone that she and her son could count on him. I did not care. He even took them to a photo studio to have a family portrait taken, the same one I would only see shortly before I died. I never interrupted them. I just stood outside, watching with a quiet smile. But my calmness unsettled Daniel. "Olivia, why don't you get upset anymore?" he asked one day. "Why should I?" replied. "They are just a mother and child in need. You're helping them. That's what a good soldier and a good husband would do. And I'm a proper military wife, aren't I?" He stood there speechless, like he had something to say, but held it in. After a long pause, he finally spoke in a softer tone. "Olivia, let's go to the general store tomorrow. We're running low on supplies." I glanced at the calendar. Only 15 days left. "I can't," I told him. "I need to go back to my hometown. Your parents have been asking about us, and since you cannot leave the base, I took time off to visit and stay with them for a few days." "It's really good to have you, Olivia," he said, his eyes full of what seemed like sincere gratitude. But to me, it all felt like a cruel joke. The truth was, I did not want to go, but I had to. If I did not go back, that same accident would happen again, and once more, I would not make it to Beijing. In my previous life, I had not been able to attend college, not just because Daniel objected, but also because of something else. His father had a sudden health crisis, and his mother, believing in some old village remedy, went up the mountain in the middle of a storm to gather herbs. She ended up breaking her leg. Back then, I saw myself as part of the Gu family. As soon as I heard what happened, I rushed around in a panic. Daniel had not even said a word yet, but I had already packed my bags to go help his parents. They say bone injuries take 100 days to heal. By the time I had nursed his mother back to health, Capital Medical had already started the semester. No university would accept a student who was 2 months late. Daniel and I were betrothed because our grandfathers made a promise when they were drunk. His parents had never truly accepted me. They believed Daniel deserved someone who could boost his career, not a girl from the countryside with no status or connections. Even so, they never treated me harshly. When my parents passed away, the Gu family had helped me a lot. Because of that, I could not just stand by and ignore Daniel's mother's suffering. Besides, at that time, I had not yet cut ties with Daniel. People still saw me as his wife. If his parents had an emergency and I did not step in, others would talk. I arrived just in time. His father had only just begun to feel unwell. I immediately called the village chief and had him taken to the hospital. His mother went with him. 3 days later, I brought them both home safely. Just to be cautious, I stayed another week. During that week, I cooked, did laundry, chopped firewood, and kept the stove warm. I even bought them daily supplies. When I finally left, his parents thanked me again and again, calling me a good daughter-in-law. I smiled but said nothing. In my heart, I knew I was done with that role. Being your daughter-in-law is too tiring, not this lifetime. Just 4 more days, I told myself. 4 more days until I could begin a new life. I took the long-distance bus back. Another day passed. When I got home and opened the door, I froze. There stood Daniel, his arms tightly wrapped around Maria Lynn's waist. Her hands clung to his neck. They were entangled like two lovers caught in a moment of passion. Even though I had already given up on Daniel after being reborn, seeing that scene still lit a fire of anger in my chest, especially when I saw the red dress Maria was wearing. A dress so bright it made my eyes ache. I remembered standing outside a store window one day, gazing at that very dress. I had admired it for a long time. Daniel had promised he would buy it for me on my birthday. And now, there it was, worn by another woman. Whether it was the dress or the man, it no longer mattered. I did not want either of them anymore. My unexpected return clearly caught them off guard. Daniel's face showed a flicker of panic as he clumsily pushed Maria away. She lost her balance and nearly stumbled. But when he looked at me, there was no trace of guilt in his eyes. Instead, there was something smug in his expression, even a hint of defiance, as if he was daring me to react. "Olivia, you're back," Daniel said, his voice shaking a little. His eyes darted around, avoiding mine. "It's not what it looks like. We were just—" He trailed off, fumbling for words. Then Maria's soft, delicate voice broke in. "Olivia, please don't misunderstand," she said gently. "I stepped on a toy and almost fell." Daniel only caught me at the last second. As she spoke, she lowered her head and smoothed the hem of her dress, putting on an innocent, vulnerable expression. I looked at the two of them, putting on their little act, and felt nothing but amusement. "Okay, got it. No misunderstanding," I replied, my voice flat and calm, just 6 words, spoken without any emotion. My response clearly startled Daniel. He frowned, looking as though he wanted to say something, even reaching out to grab my arm, but he stopped himself. Just then, a child's cheerful voice broke the silence. "Mom, Dad, look at the boat I made." Leo ran over to Maria, smiling brightly and holding a small paper boat in his hand. My eyes dropped to the paper. Something about it made my chest tighten. That paper. It looked just like the one my college acceptance letter had been printed on. No, that couldn't be. My heart started pounding. Panic and anger rushed over me like a wave. I stepped forward quickly and snatched the paper boat from Leo's hands. He began to cry loudly, his face scrunched up, tears, snot, and drool all mixing together. Daniel picked him up at once, gently patting his back. "Shh, Leo, it's okay. Don't cry," he murmured. Maria dabbed at Leo's cheeks with a handkerchief, her face full of concern. Then she glanced at me sharply. "Olivia, no matter how much you dislike me, don't take it out on Leo. He's just a child. He did nothing wrong." But I was not listening. My eyes were fixed on the paper in my hands. Their voices faded, becoming a dull hum in the background. I unfolded the boat with trembling fingers, my breathing heavy. Thank goodness, it was not my acceptance letter. Still, I could not calm down. I rushed into my room, dropped to the floor, and crawled under the bed. After a few moments of frantic searching, I found the envelope where I had hidden my college admission letter. It was still there, untouched. I finally exhaled in relief and carefully tucked it into my shoulder bag, zipping it closed. Until the day I boarded that bus to Beijing, I would guard it with my life. "Olivia, go apologize to Leo," Daniel said from outside the door. His voice was low and full of blame. I turned and saw the three of them standing there. Leo's face was still wet with tears, his cheeks red and puffy. He looked up at me, waiting for me to say sorry. But I felt no guilt. Even if the boat had not been made from my letter, Leo had already torn up one of my workbooks without permission. Was I not allowed to be angry? Before I could speak, Leo shouted, "Bad auntie, I hate you. Daddy, tell her to leave. She's mean." He wrapped his arms tightly around Daniel's neck, crying even harder. Maria quickly stepped in, covering Leo's mouth. "He's just a child. He doesn't know what he's saying," she said with a soft smile, as if that sharp glare she'd given me earlier had never happened. It was then that I finally looked around the room. My old room. But it no longer felt like mine. Maria and her son had taken over everything. Bright red bed sheets with cartoon prints covered the bed. The vanity was crowded with jars of face cream, products I had never dared to buy for myself. Toys were scattered across the floor. In the living room, I had already seen her floral dress draped on the couch and her son's little sailor outfit thrown carelessly on a chair. But where were my things? I scanned the cozy little space I had once arranged with such care. Now it was filled with traces of people who did not belong here. Or maybe I was the one who no longer belonged. I, still labeled Daniel's fiancée, felt like a stranger, like someone who had walked into the wrong house. A bitter sense of irony rose in my chest. Daniel looked uncomfortable. He still avoided my eyes. "Olivia, it's like this," he started, sounding nervous. "There has been a man stalking Maria lately. She has been scared and could not sleep. Since you were gone these past few days, I let her and Leo stay here. Just temporarily," he added quickly. "The man has been arrested now. They will move out tomorrow." Then he paused, hesitated for a moment, and said, "Tonight, why don't you stay with me? It's not a big deal. We are practically already married anyway." But the truth was, Daniel and I had never even held a proper wedding. We did not even sleep in the same room. When Maria Lynn heard what Daniel said, a flicker of annoyance crossed her eyes, but she quickly masked it with a gentle smile. "Olivia, we are only staying one more night," she said softly. "Tomorrow, I will return the room to you. I promise everything will be just the way it was." But I could see right through her. She had no intention of leaving. Deep down, I even suspected that the stalker she mentioned might have been someone she hired herself. Then, in the middle of her sentence, she suddenly burst into tears. "If James had not died," she sobbed, "Leo and I would not have to rely on Daniel for help. Olivia, please do not worry. No matter how hard life gets, we will never trouble Daniel again." Right on cue, another perfect performance, everything carefully timed to pull at Daniel's heartstrings and fill him with guilt. "Maria, don't say that," Daniel said immediately, his face full of concern. "James was like a brother to me. You are my sister-in-law. He gave his life to save mine. Of course, I have a duty to take care of you and Leo." Then he turned to me. "Olivia, you know me. I have always had a kind heart. You understand me, right?" I looked at him and said nothing. I did not understand him. and I no longer wanted to. My things, I said coldly, not hiding my irritation. I stared at the door to his room. He led me there. Go ahead and check. Nothing is missing. I scanned the room briefly and gave a short nod. Everything's here. Really? He asked, still frowning. It feels like something is missing. What about the shoe sole you were stitching? I was hoping you would make me a new pair. So he had noticed. I nearly laughed. I messed it up and threw it out, I replied. If you want new shoes, you can buy them yourself. Daniel's face fell. Olivia, he said, his voice suddenly low and full of disappointment. You don't smile like you used to. I'm just tired, I answered plainly. He sighed and tried to change the subject. How are my parents doing? They're fine, I said. They mentioned they miss you. I miss them too, he said with a small smile. It feels a little awkward now, but once things settle down at the base, let's go visit them together. You know, their biggest wish is to have a grandchild. We should try to make that happen. A grandchild. In my past life, I had lost our baby in a terrible accident. My health had been damaged. I could no longer have children. If anyone wanted to give his parents a grandchild, it would have to be Maria Lynn. Olivia, I have something for you, Daniel said gently, pulling me to sit on the bed beside him. He opened the drawer and took out 2 movie tickets. You have always wanted to go see a movie. The day after tomorrow is your birthday. Let's go together. His voice was soft, his eyes full of hope, like he was trying to make things right. Years ago, I used to dream of going to the movies with him. Just something simple, buying 2 sodas, holding hands, being like any ordinary couple. But he was always too busy. He always said there was no time. We never went, not even once. Now, suddenly, he had bought the tickets. After everything, he was finally offering what I had once longed for. It almost made me laugh. 3 days from now would be my last day here. So I nodded and said, sure, let's go. It was not for him. It was for the girl I used to be, the one who had loved him so deeply, who once hoped for this moment. The next day, after Daniel left for the base, Maria and her son began packing their things, slowly dragging it out as long as they could. Mommy, I don't want to leave, Leo cried, clinging to her leg. This is Daddy's house. That means it is our house. I don't want to go. Shh, Leo, be good, Maria said softly, patting his head. Mommy will bring you back here soon, and next time, no one will be able to make us leave. Unfortunately for her, I happened to be standing right at the doorway when she said that. She turned and saw me, her face flashing with panic for a brief second before she recovered her usual calm. The sweetness disappeared. She looked at me with bold defiance. Don't get too smug, Olivia, she said sharply. Daniel is only with you because he is keeping a promise to his elders. The one he truly loves is me. I smiled gently. Are you sure about that? She hesitated. I told a quiet lie, my voice steady but laced with quiet satisfaction. He even bought 2 movie tickets. He's taking me to see Romance on Lukon Mountain the night after tomorrow. That film had been a huge hit in the 1980s, a classic love story. Tickets were nearly impossible to get, and many people had tried and failed. I knew Maria must have wanted to see it. Sure enough, I saw the flicker of envy in her eyes, though she quickly stiffened her posture and said, What's so special about a movie? A waste of money. I shrugged and smiled again, letting it go. She pulled Leo close and began packing faster. After spending the whole morning stalling, she and her son finally cleared out their things. Not long after, I left the house too. I went to the station and bought a train ticket, the earliest one I could find. I also bought plenty of food. The journey from here to Beijing would take almost 4 days and 3 nights. Soon, it was the day Daniel had promised to take me to the movies. Before the workday officially ended, he was already back from the base. I saw him riding his bike down the road, a cardboard box tied to the back seat. Olivia, I'm back, he called out with a smile, waving at me from a distance. I stood quietly at the doorway, watching him walk toward me. My heart was filled with emotions I could not quite name. What's that? I asked, pointing at the box fastened to his bicycle. A little something for you, he replied cheerfully, parking the bike and pulling out a cassette tape. Teresa Tang's music. I know women love her songs. Honestly, I think they're quite good too, he added with a grin as he handed it to me. I held the tape in my hand, my fingers tightening slightly. My brows drew together just a little. The truth was, Teresa Tang had never been my favorite. That had been Maria Lynn's idol. I always preferred Lee, but Daniel never knew that. He had never asked. All the affection he tried to give me had been based on assumptions, on what he believed all women liked, or, more accurately, what Maria liked. And so he assumed I would feel the same. Come on, let's eat, he said, reaching for my hand. We walked together to a nearby state-run restaurant. He ordered a bowl of longevity noodles, along with a few dishes from my hometown. From now on, every year on your birthday, we will eat out like this, he said warmly. I quietly ate the noodles without responding. He had said those same words to me in my past life too, but after that day, he never once spent another birthday with me. After dinner, we walked to the theater. The movie would begin in 10 minutes. Around us, young couples chatted and shared snacks, holding hands and laughing. Daniel looked around and asked, "Want some sweet popcorn?" I shook my head, but he went off to buy it anyway. Just as he came back with the popcorn, Maria Lynn appeared out of nowhere. She rushed forward, grabbed his hand, and her face was pale and full of panic. "Daniel, Leo has a high fever. He's burning up. Can you take us to the military hospital?" she cried, her voice trembling. Daniel's expression changed immediately. His brow creased, and I could see the worry flooding his face. "Afraid you might try to stop him," Maria said in a broken voice. "I'm just a poor widow. If something happens to my son, I will not be able to handle it. Please." Tears streamed down her face. She looked like a flower crushed by rain. Daniel stood there, torn. He still held the movie tickets in one hand, but they seemed to grow heavier by the second. "I'm sorry, Olivia," he said quietly. "It's all right," I answered, forcing a calm smile. "Leo's health comes first. Go ahead." "Take one ticket. Go inside first," he said quickly, as if that would somehow make up for leaving. "I will leave the other one at the front desk. After I drop them off, I'll come right back." I took the ticket and nodded without saying anything. Then he turned and left with Maria and Leo. But I knew, once he went with her, she would not let him come back so easily. I stood there for a long while, watching his figure disappear into the crowd. "Goodbye, Daniel," I whispered softly. That night, I returned home, pulled out the suitcase I had secretly packed days earlier, and left for a small hotel near the train station. I slept soundly for the first time in a long while. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I got up, washed, had a simple breakfast, and made my way to the station. After passing through that checkpoint, I boarded the train bound for Beijing. As the train pulled out of the station, the long, echoing whistle rang again and again. To me, it felt like a reminder, a quiet whisper saying, "Olivia Chen, your new life is about to begin." When I arrived at Capital Medical University, everything went smoothly. I completed enrollment, settled into my dorm, and started a brand new chapter. I had chosen pharmaceutical research as my major, and my days were quickly filled with lectures, experiments, and lab work. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. I truly believed I would never see Daniel Gu again. But one afternoon, he suddenly appeared outside my dormitory. He looked completely different. Tired, worn down, like a shadow of the man I had once known. His head and one arm were wrapped in bandages. It was obvious he had not fully recovered. "Olivia!" He called my name, his voice trembling. He staggered as he walked, barely able to keep his balance. "Why did you leave without saying a word?" he asked, like a child who had been left behind. "I looked for you everywhere." He lowered his head, his voice was thick with emotion. "I had to ask your professors before I found out you were admitted to Capital Medical." Then I spoke, my voice cold. "Why did you not tell me? I would have celebrated with you," he said. "Celebrate?" I let out a dry laugh. He could not understand what I found so absurd. He kept going. "I wanted to come see you in Beijing right away, but there was an urgent mission at the base. I had no choice. During the operation, I was injured and could not get out of bed for months. As soon as I was able to move, I came here to find you." His eyes were red, but when I looked at him, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no warmth. I was empty. You should leave, I said firmly. There is nothing between us anymore. That's not true, he said, becoming upset. We are husband and wife. You are my wife. I let out another bitter laugh. Do we have a marriage certificate? He fell silent, completely caught off guard. After a pause, he stammered. I lost the marriage registration form, but I will submit another one to the unit. Then we will go register at the civil office. I am not going back with you, I said, my voice steady and clear. And I will not marry you. Go home. Go live your life with Maria and Leo. At the mention of Maria Lynn's name, his face darkened. Olivia, why do you always misunderstand my relationship with Maria? He asked, sounding flustered. I only feel responsible for them. That is all. I never wanted to marry anyone but you. This has nothing to do with her. I looked him straight in the eye and cut him off. All I want is to study hard and serve my country in the field of medicine. I do not want to become anyone's wife. He stood there, stunned. You have such noble goals, he finally said, as if hearing it for the first time. I always did, I replied. But you just assumed my whole life would revolve around yours, like I had nothing else to live for. No, that's not what I meant, he said quickly, panic creeping into his voice. If you do not want to come back and get married, then I will come to Beijing. I will request a transfer to the base there, and we will— Daniel, I interrupted again, my tone calm but firm. I do not want to marry you, not because of anyone else. Simply because I no longer love you, and I never want you to be part of my life again. He stood frozen, unable to speak for a long time. At last he whispered, That cannot be, Olivia. I do not believe you. You are lying to me. I am not, I said quietly. Believe it or not, it makes no difference to me. I had no desire to argue any longer. I turned and walked toward my dorm. Behind me, his voice called out, unwilling to give up. Olivia, wait for me. I swear I will get transferred to Beijing. That promise, shouted so confidently, was never fulfilled. Daniel Gu never came to Beijing again, and honestly, that was for the best. Without him, my life was quieter. I could focus more on my studies. My days became clearer, and my heart more at peace. Later, by chance, I heard something about him from someone back in my hometown. Daniel had been promoted after completing a successful mission. He was even given an official commendation and applied for a transfer to Beijing. The organization approved it. But when Maria Lynn found out, she clung to her son and cried, begging Daniel not to leave. For the first time, Daniel refused her. He told Leo to stop calling him Dad and start calling him Uncle Daniel. He said he would send money every month to help raise the boy, but that was all. Sarah agreed, at least on the surface. Just before Daniel was about to leave for Beijing, she insisted on cooking him a farewell dinner. She made chive dumplings and secretly added drugs to them. That night, they ended up sleeping together. The next morning, Maria threatened him. If he refused to marry her, she would jump into the river with the child. The whole incident caused a terrible scandal. When the military found out, Daniel was harshly punished. His transfer was canceled and he was demoted by 2 ranks. Only then did he see Maria's true nature. In the end, he had no choice but to marry her. When I heard all of this, I sat quietly for a moment. In my past life, he had drained everything from me for Maria and her son. And now, in this life, he was once again trapped by her, forced to marry her after all. Maybe that was just their fate. I felt nothing. To me, it was just a story I overheard during dinner. Compared to Daniel's downfall, I was far more interested in my lab results. I closed my research notebook and walked to the window of the lab. Beijing's winter was dry and bitter cold, but my heart was full of warmth and purpose. I would continue my research, digging deeper into the mysteries of life, working to solve the most difficult medical problems in the world. That was the life I truly wanted. The year I completed my master's degree, my advisor asked if I would be interested in joining a national pharmaceutical research project based in a remote region. The goal was to create medicine for serious diseases and help extend human life. It was a major effort that would benefit people all over the world. Being invited was an incredible honor. I said yes without hesitation. Once I arrived at the research base, my entire world became about science. My team and I worked with great dedication and unity. Over the next 30 years, we published hundreds of important papers and developed more than 100 new medicines that improved human health. We earned national awards and gained recognition from around the world. 30 years passed, the world changed. My country grew stronger and more prosperous. One day, I received an invitation from my hometown officials asking me to return and give a speech. When I arrived, I was overwhelmed by the changes. The muddy mountain roads had become smooth highways. The old crumbling houses were replaced with neat little villas. Most families had a car parked in front of their homes. My heart was full of emotion. I knew how many people had worked so hard and given so much for this country to rise from hardship to hope. After the tour, I was preparing to return to the institute and continue my work. But just before I left, the village chief came over with a strange look on his face. "Comrade Olivia Chen," he said quietly, "there is someone who insists on seeing you. He says he knew you and asked to speak with you just once." I paused for a moment, then nodded. "All right, I will see him." A man walked slowly toward me, leaning heavily on a cane. His skin was weathered and dark, his clothes were worn and stained, and his steps unsteady. When he looked at me, his eyes were filled with a strange mixture of emotions: regret, sorrow, and something else I could not name. Something about him felt familiar, yet I could not quite place him. He stopped in front of me, trembling, and his eyes shimmered with tears. "Olivia," he said softly, "you really did it. You have done great things for our country," he said in a low, raspy voice. In that moment, I knew exactly who he was. Daniel Gu, once a proud and spirited young man, now just a frail, aging figure nearing the end of his road. My heart felt tangled with emotions. Are you all right?" I asked gently. "What about Maria and Leo?" He gave a bitter smile, the kind that seemed to carry the weight of a lifetime. It was the kind of smile you might see on the last leaf clinging to a tree in winter. "Maria, she is gone." "Gone?" I repeated softly. "Gone where?" He shook his head slowly, his eyes empty and distant. "I do not know. She ran off with another man. She never came back." My heart sank. "And Leo?" I asked, almost afraid of the answer. His smile twisted with even more sorrow. Murky tears slid down the deep lines on his face. "Leo is gone too," he said. I drew in a sharp breath, stunned. "What? What do you mean?" He closed his eyes as if the pain was too much to bear. His chest rose with a heavy breath, like he was trying to pull all the grief into himself. He fell in with the wrong crowd, got involved in something dangerous. In the end, he was beaten to death. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. The little boy Maria had once raised with such care had walked straight into tragedy. How could this happen? I murmured, my mind reeling. Daniel opened his eyes again. They were full of regret and guilt. "It was my fault," he said, voice shaking. "I failed to raise him properly." He began to recount the years that had passed. Even though he and Maria Lynn had gotten married, their life together had been full of bitterness. She picked fights over everything. Eventually, he moved into the military barracks just to get some peace. Then came another mission. He was seriously injured, and this time, his leg was permanently damaged. He was honorably discharged and could no longer serve. Maria took his retirement money and tried investing it, hoping for a fresh start, but she lost it all. Leo, struggling through his teenage years, turned rebellious and ended up entangled in crime. In the end, it cost him his life. Maria could not handle the loss. She blamed Daniel for everything, for not avenging their son, for failing them both. Then she disappeared, taking what little money was left and vanishing with another man. No one ever heard from her again. When he finished speaking, a deep sigh welled up inside me. Looking at the man in front of me, I felt no hatred, only a quiet, profound sympathy. "Things will get better," I said softly. "Our country does not abandon its people." He looked at me with an unreadable expression. After a long silence, he finally said, Olivia, thank you. I smiled gently and turned to leave, but then he called out again, his voice trembling. Olivia, I am sorry. I turned back slowly. If it were not for me, he said, his voice low, you would have achieved so much more in your previous life. I stared at him, stunned. Daniel wiped his hand across his cloudy eyes, then gave a slow nod. That's right, he said. I was reborn too. His voice was like it was coming from far away. During my final mission, I was gravely injured. I was unconscious for a long time. He paused, searching for the right words. While I was unconscious, I saw everything. My heart skipped a beat. A strange feeling washed over me. I saw the joy on your face when you got your college acceptance letter, he said, his voice filled with regret. And how selfish I was, making you give up that dream. His voice cracked. He looked down. I saw what Maria and Leo did to you after I died, he said, the words catching in his throat. Tears ran down his weathered face. They tried to kick you out, he whispered, eyes closing tight like he was trying to block the memory. And then I saw you collapse from a heart attack. His voice trembled, heavy with guilt. That was when I realized how terribly wrong I had been. He opened his eyes again. They were full of sorrow and self-reproach. I always believed that once a woman married a man, she should stand by him no matter what, he said. Then he let out a quiet, bitter laugh. But I never once thought about how you felt, about what you wanted. He shook his head. I put all my trust in Maria and Leo. In the end, I raised two heartless people with my own hands. I stood quietly, my emotions swirling like a storm inside. When I woke up, he continued, I wanted to find you. I wanted to tell you something. He hesitated again, a trace of doubt in his voice. To tell you that the only person I ever truly loved was you. My heart gave a sudden jolt, but quickly settled. I only ever felt responsibility towards Maria and Leo, he added quickly, as if needing to explain. But I never had the courage to face you. He lowered his head, like a child confessing a mistake. Do you hate me? He asked, lifting his eyes to meet mine. They were filled with fear and sadness. I looked at him, a man once so proud, now worn down by years of regret. I shook my head. No, I said gently. I stopped hating you a long time ago, and you do not need to drown in guilt anymore. I paused. We were simply two people who were never meant to be. My voice was calm, steady. But my life has been meaningful. It has had purpose. I looked out into the distance, my voice clear and sure. For the rest of my days, I will continue to serve my country in every way I can. He nodded slowly, his emotions catching in his throat, his eyes wet with tears. I stepped into the official car that had been arranged for me. As the familiar streets of my hometown disappeared behind me, a quiet peace settled in my heart. My life was still moving forward,